welcome John Bowen to join us again on Nerd's Eye View.
Michael, I always love hanging out with you.
Well, I'm excited to have you join us today and to get to dig in, I think, just a little further into serving business owners, right? So many of us advisors serve business owners. As many know, I started out in the life insurance world. We were very focused on business owners. Now, frankly, back then, that was because we wanted to sell you the buy-sell life insurance policy because that was the life insurance deal. But it was always like find a business owner that might have an opportunity. But I mean, I know the reality, like having lived this myself, or like there are lots of different types of business owners, right? Like just literally saying business owner is a bit of a painful generalization. Like firms are at different sizes, different dynamics of founders. At least from my experience, I've always tended to think of these stages as being very size based. Like, tell me how many team members are in your organization, and I can start to visualize the kinds of problems you are probably facing as a business owner because of the organizational complexity of your team count. But John, I know you have like recently written a book, like now delving into this called The Greater Game with Dan Sullivan of Strategic Coach World about this, I guess, like business owner entrepreneurial journey and the fact that there really are some quite predictable stages and evolutions, maybe not size related, but that do flow in a sequence. So I'm excited to dive in and talk about like what does that journey really look like? And right from our end as advisors, like how do we show like what expertise and advice do I need to be bringing depending on where my clients are as business owners?
Yeah, Michael, as you know, I coach, top financial advisors, and the largest concentration of wealth is with business owners. And you
Yep.
described they're all over the place. And a couple of years ago, Dan and I, Sullivan and I, did a 25-year agreement to do an annual survey of entrepreneurs. We actually have now changed. We're doing it monthly. But the idea is to really answer the question that you have, because being in business, there's the mom and pop coffee shop, and then there's Starbucks. They're both
Right.
serve coffee. They're
Yes,
very
but like
different.
Howard Schultz's challenges running Starbucks are a little bit different than like my mom and pop coffee shop off the store. They both run a business and have challenges, but they're different.
Yeah, and the coffee, my guess is they're pretty good at both. And what we came up with, and this is something that we really wanted to look at, is that, business owners, are monolithic, as you talked about. And there's really four stages that we saw. The
Okay.
first one was kind of a foundation. This is just getting started. They've got the ambition. They may or may not have cash confidence, but
Okay.
they're making progress. And then the stage two is expansion, where they're starting to get the energy and they have motivation now. They usually have created some substantial IP at this point. And then stage three is multiplication. And this is where they learn to really work collaboratively. Not, we always think the team first, but it's actually creating the community or be part of someone else's community. And then stage four, the impact. This is all about, really what are those businesses that blow by 100 million of revenue, let's say, that they're doing, and creating that agency, kind of the, going to the blue ocean. They create their own market. And what I'd like everybody to think, as you and I are talking about, we're going to talk about entrepreneurs, business owners, but everybody listening here as a financial advisor or watching the video,
We
you are a
we do
business
a version
owner
of
or
this too. Yep.
entrepreneur.
If you're a firm owner. Yep.
Yeah. And so, or if you have an equity piece, you want to be able to hold a mirror to yourself and start thinking, where are you in this process? And what can you learn from some of the most successful advisors? Entrepreneurs. We really focused on, Dan and I identified 5.4% of the advisors we surveyed in this study for what were the things that were driving their success
Okay.
that they were doing. There were 10 multipliers that they were just killing it. And in the book, we have 26 stories of great entrepreneurs, and a little bit of the backstory. It's so colorful. But boy, one of the things that we all want is a framework.
Mhm.
So as an advisor, that I can better serve the entrepreneurs I work with and
Yep.
differentiate myself and help them along this pathway. And then I also like that that helps me an awful lot as well.
So so now help us understand, I guess, like, can you drill further into what's going on in these stages? Because I guess I also want to be mindful stages here, like these are not stages of the business, these are stages of the business owner. Like this is what I'm doing with and in and around my business.
So, I'm putting up, if you're listening to this, you can go and Michael's team will make available a deck
Yeah.
that you can download to have all these slides. But I just want to put up, the very first one is, four stages as a glance. I mean, this is that
Okay.
foundation for freedom. Number one, it's really the core shift is where business owners are moving from scarcity to kind of a structured ambition. They're starting to get their wealth together. And this is where the opportunity for financial advisors start. Where they get stuck is it's usually not coordinated, any of the wealth management, and they're getting
Right.
people
Yeah.
to help them, but they're siloed. And
This
then
is
the
like this is
advisor,
my like traditional, I feel like this is my traditional advisor role, right? Like my
yeah.
I've got my clients, it's the mom and pop coffee shop, or it's the doctor that owns the medical practice. The business is getting going, they're making some money. They've got a CPA doing one set of things and like a practice manager doing something else, and then they're figuring out their own money
And they
stuff on the
never talk
side,
to each
and
other. And
nothing
yeah.
talks to the other.
Yeah, this is a traditional sweet spot for our industry. And Michael, I'm a little older than you, if you don't know that. And the training you got, and it sounds like the training I got in the industry, is really for this level business owner, entrepreneur. And that's where, really what we're talking about today is understanding the levels, and they need
Yeah.
different services from advisors. And if you want to play at the higher level, and if we look at all the households in the US and you're focused on 25 million and above of financial assets, you want to work there, that's 90% are business owners. Well, 5% or 5 million of investable assets to 25, it's 3 out of 4 are business owners. So this is the greatest way of wealth, but you've got to understand the levels here.
So then take me to stage two now. So what's going on? What's
This is
changing?
where it gets really interesting because now they're getting energy for expansion. So, they were already ambitious. They've got some security, so they're able to make some business decisions. They're building wealth. They're very motivated. They get off the couch. Ambition here, think of as more vision.
Yep.
Motivation is actually taking action. But the big thing
Okay.
here is they start getting the insights out of their head. Michael, you create an awful lot of IP,
Yep.
intellectual property. I do too. Okay. If it's in our heads, the value is only so much that you can trade hours for. But by putting it in a form of whether it's thought leadership, training, coaching, business processes, and so on, that becomes big. So the core shift here is instead of really depleting ourselves from energy, we have an internal generation, and instead of locking one head, it's scalable. Where they get stuck is they really have a hard time moving this out, and they get caught in a founder dependency. So what that means is that one person is critical to the business, and that's usually where they keep them at level two. From an
Okay.
advisor focus, now you don't have to be the expert on this, but what starts coming in here is understanding IP, equity structures, succession planning, and
Sure.
business model design. And
Th-
I'll share a little later some of the statistics, but boy, they're looking for, can you help them get through this level?
Well, I mean, this now reminds me, I guess come from an advisor and professional services world. It's like this feels very professional services to me in particular. I mean, I'm just visioning the 3 or 4 person law practice because it's one dude or dudette at the top who has this amazing expertise and build a practice and added a couple of lawyers or accountants or folks around them to kind of take some of their clients and leverage them a little bit. But if that person at the top went away, like the clients aren't coming anymore. Like they come for the person at the top. I feel like a lot of us as advisors probably have this as well as a certain practice size where there are several of us as advisors, but let's be honest, I'm not sure the firm's really going to keep growing if that person at the
Well,
top ever went away,
not
which
only are they
means
not going to do the growing, if the primary, the dependency founder
Mhm.
is getting all this, then the team isn't ever going to learn how to do it.
one. And so it strikes me now when you just get down to what do we do as advisors? Where did I historically show up for a stage two firm? Oh, you're trying to figure out how to eventually hand off your firm to like successors, the other two lawyers or doctors in your firm. Do you have a buy sell agreement? Because I'd be happy to help you fund that, right? Like
We're
we show up at the
That's the one
succession
thing,
part. We show up maybe at the entity structuring, not because we're giving legal advice on entity, but
right?
because we might be helping clients think through, like, well, who takes over? Who buys it out? How do you eventually get your dollars out of this business? If it's going to be hard to mine dollars out, let's create a neat retirement plan structure where we'll help you mine more dollars out of the business. Like we just feels like that's where we tend to show up as advisors as we interface into
Well, and
this.
I would say that would be the better advisor on stage two. We totally
Okay.
ignore the IP and we really ignore the multiplier effect
Mm-hmm.
on EBITDA as well. And those are big ones that we can easily address. Again, remember what they're not asking, Michael, you to be an expert at everything, or me, or any advisor. They want you to curate that expertise so that it's coordinated. It's
Right.
not in a silo. And that's where the value comes in tremendously.
So then what happens as I go to stage three?
This is where it really starts taking off. And we call it the collaboration multiplication. There's a community, and the way, and this, each of these gold here are the 10 multipliers we call the greater community. And notice this before teamwork. One of the things is you're building businesses. If you can identify the community that you can be part of, you can work with competitors and the whole thing. And really, the noise, particularly in today's marketplace, without being in a community, it's very hard to be successful. Then your team, and then one of the big multipliers is making it autonomy, giving yourself autonomy so that you have the ability to step away. That's where the multiplication really goes up because, otherwise, if you need to be there, somebody's buying an expensive job where when you
Right.
have autonomy, you can step away for 90 days.
This feels like the old Dan Sullivan, like this is when you get to the so-called self-managing teams, like what happens when that business gets to the point that you can go disappear for a few weeks or a month at a time, like, oh, everything just kept running and
Yeah.
did its thing. It didn't matter that I wasn't there.
Well, and this is where, Dan wrote the book with me.
Yeah.
We're co-authors on this.
Yeah, yeah.
And we've spent a lot of time on this framework. When we look at it, kind of the shifts that are going on
Yep.
is, moving from individual excellence to exponential ecosystems. We're moving from being indispensable to invincible because of the team that we have. The indispensable discount. If you are the guy or the gal, the dude or duet, you are going to get a discount. But
Right.
if you can step away, there's a multiplier. The advisor focus, here's what they're looking for. They want help on governance, self-managed partnership structures, pre-transaction positioning here. This is
Which,
really big and
well, to
very
me, you
seldom
you
are they
just
getting it.
you just like exited stage left from, it's feel like what most of us do and are trained in as advisors. I'm like, I don't get trained in what to say, governance and pre-transaction positioning. Like that's not my expertise skill set. So is this
Well,
a
and
separation where advisors can't help anymore, or is this like a retraining? Like we need to learn. Dogs need to learn new tricks.
I think it's a little of both, Michael. We don't need to be
Okay.
experts, but we have to know enough so that we can pick partners that we're going to
Okay.
work with that can bring that expertise to our clients who
Okay.
need that. And that's where, and that's nobody again. I mean, you know, Michael, you're in the center of an awful lot of IP. I own a research company. I got all
Yep.
kinds of IP. We'll train
Yep.
10,000 advisors this year, 1,000 in coaching programs. And I got to tell you, I get exposed to an awful lot. I don't know everything either. Nobody knows everything. I
Well, yeah,
actually
we're all
learned very
learning.
quickly how little I know type thing. But this is where getting the learning, so I jokingly call it superficial knowledge, but enough so that we can go ahead and have the experts working with us. And that's what clients really appreciate is that coordination, that curation first, coordination so that they're tied together.
It just strikes me that, I think about, I mean, I guess like I'm maybe over projecting my own history with clients like this in the past, and just what I feel like I see from our industry. Like, I mean, I don't know what size is. I'm presuming just team wise, if I'm getting to the point that on the business is self-managing and I'm thinking about governance things and partner structures. I mean, I'm a I don't know, I'm a 30, 40, 50 plus person organization. I might have 5, 10 plus million dollars of revenue and up to multiples of that. I just feel like our traditional advisor view is something to the effect of, wow, this is amazing. Like, this is a client who might save $500,000 to $1 million a year into my portfolio. And I'd be so happy to help you like grow those assets and tend those assets and do all the things that we do. And the things you're actually talking about of what drives outcomes for them has like basically nothing to do with that. That's the
Yeah,
part
I
left
mean,
over after
that's
you.
nice. That's table stakes. That's nice to have, but the value creation isn't that. And it's not that that's not important, but that's table stakes where the more you can bring out and help them. And let's go one more level, Michael, because I
Okay.
think this is where it comes together and people can really see the value creation. Because what we find if you make it to stage four, this is exponential growth. I mean, you're really making an impact. And from here, they're no longer reacting, they're creating markets. And this is where they're going to blue oceans, creating, that's really what agency is.
So
And from wealth to significance is
this
what
is
they're
like my
looking.
serial entrepreneur who like had his big liquidity event and says like, well, now I'm going to do the big impact thing. I'm making three more businesses.
Well, or yeah, I mean, I started three businesses on my 70th birthday. I started a private foundation, all that stuff. I would be your stage four if you're an advisor. I would be a great
Yep.
client for you. And what, if we look at the multipliers that are going on, it's agency, creating markets, commitment. They are looking to make a major impact in that marketplace, and they have the courage to do that. Now, a big part of it is they actually have great, I have a lot more courage now that I have a great security, from the
Yep.
asset base and so on. But there's been an explosion of wealth really since, the 2008 or March 2009.
Yep.
And so what they're looking for help, they get stuck as they drift after the wind. Your best clients are already wealthy without you. Okay.
Right.
They've won, but okay, they've solved capital. They're struggling more with meaning and identity. And what they want from their advisors, they've got families. How are they going to, do family governance? They want strategically to be able to make charitable gifts. The big thing that people get caught up to, advisors, Michael, is legacy. Okay, I'm 70, but I don't want an enduring legacy. I want an active legacy, my wife and I. I want to make a difference while I'm living.
Yep.
Next generation development. This is a really big thing for me. And so, when you start talking with, and I have the privilege of working with an awful lot of successful entrepreneurs, this is what they want. But we want to keep on telling them how to make just a little bit more money on the investment side.
Yep.
They want you to see the big picture and help curate
Yep.
their
Well,
success with them.
well, and it strikes me when the domain you're talking about in stage four there, like family governance, strategic philanthropy, what's my legacy? I mean, I guess this for businesses of that size, I feel like that's where a lot of my friends that work with, dare I say, like traditional ultra high net worth multifamily office environments, like yes, that's a lot of their conversation, right? There's so much dollars that a portion is going to go to Uncle Sam or a charity because them's the estate laws. So we have to open up philanthropy giving doors family governance is real because there's enough money we can mess up some kids if we're not careful.
Mhm.
Uh, so I guess what strikes me, like just hearing this, I guess to me, I feel like we have a bigger gap in maybe stage three, sort of two and three. Like I know what I do with my stage ones, right? We're trying to help you survive, make a little money, get some money out of the business, just like get your framework in place, get the experts talking to each other. I know what comes at the end. There's a lot of money. Let's be good stewards of it and all the pieces that go with it, and the middle stages that just feel very build the business because the biggest lever is making the business bigger. And that to me, just that feels like a gap for where we tend to be as advisors, because we tend to focus on the dollars coming out of the business, not actually like what can I do to impact the enterprise value of your business, even though that's the biggest asset on your balance sheet.
Well, and this is where, we're so used to assets under management. I think, Michael, I don't know your exact thoughts on this, so it'd be great for you to express it. But what we're seeing, when a survey of a little over 3,000 entrepreneurs we just did, the lowest thing they were concerned was fees. It was 2.5% when we
Yeah.
get to concerns. They only become concerned when the absence of value. Your ability to do retainers and all that business with this audience is huge. The assets are the table stake. They're going to give those to you if you can deliver the value. I called it the four bridges. And this is, how
Okay.
can an advisor at each of these stages help them move from one to two?
Okay.
Well, the beginning guys, small business, they're dreaming to architecting. And this is where I got to say, most advisors working with business owners, I want to believe, are doing this well. I can tell you, unfortunately, in our research, only 6% are delivering it from the entrepreneur's belief at
Oh,
this
so like
level.
when you ask the client business owners, is your advisor actually helping to orchestrate all your things? Six
Yeah.
percent of them are saying yes.
Yes.
Okay,
And that's
still
where,
okay. Go on.
and it's, taking care of the investment side, not surprising. That's fairly high, but it's only 70%. Mitigating taxes, taking care of the heirs, protecting the assets, and the charitable planning. And then succession planning would be the six. And we will ask on that, and 6% are doing it across the board or perceive that doing it. When we ask the advisors, it's in the 80% are delivering. So somebody's not telling the truth. But the question is, if the client doesn't perceive you're doing it, then it doesn't matter if you perceive you're doing it. So one of the things I just want to encourage everybody to do is, and these slides will be available, but you got to do the orchestration. They want the coordination, they want the curation. And what
Mhm.
we do is, at best, we're referring that out. There has to be working together. So there's a coordination on this.
Okay.
And unfortunately, most advisors assume if they mention some things in it, that counts. That's not enough, Michael. And that's a baseline. When we go from level 2 to 3, where we're moving from expertise to now becoming scalable, this is where if you can learn a little bit about IP, and you can get a relationship with an IP attorney, I got to tell you, they're going to love you. Well, we quite honestly, the world's changing with AI,
Yeah.
so that the value of this is even getting higher.
Mm.
When we start moving from 3 to 4, Michael, is one of the things, you the guy in your organization. I have been the guy. I'm now moving as quickly as possible away from that.
Mm.
And what makes it the business move from indispensable to invincible is that. Well, these are the advisor things. Can you help on governance? Okay, probably you're not the expert in that. Bring somebody in. Self-managed team design. Okay, this is Dan Sullivan's group, big part of it. Pre-transaction. If you don't have a SEPA, you may want to get some experts from that. And then the emotional
Oh,
work on
SEPA,
the identity.
the CEPA designation.
Yeah, the
Okay.
Certified Exit
Exit
Planning
planner. Okay.
Association type thing.
Okay.
But this is get a little training and then decide what level of expertise you want to be. But the opportunities there are huge. And then Lastly, I mean, this is where it really starts coming together. When we start going from four to infinite, from wealth to significance, capital doesn't, I mean, my wife and I, no matter what we do, will never spend the capital that we have. Okay. We just
Right.
can't. Okay. That's a lot of your ultra high net worth clients have that. So now it's like the meaning, we're in our 70s. Our meaning, what is it? Well, family governance, legacy, what are we doing? Strategic philanthropy, next generation. This is a much bigger issue. And it's not just leaving money to kids. Like in Jeannie, in my case, we don't have kids. So, and I've had plenty of young people offer to be adopted, but
Uh-huh.
we have some charitable interests. And we said, you know what, we should start practicing now. And we started a foundation, funded it well, and we're going to continue to fund it every year. And the idea here is, okay, what do we want to do in an enduring legacy? Why we're living. Obviously,
Yep.
most people want to have or excuse me, active legacy. Most of us as advisors are always talking the enduring legacy once they're gone. There's plenty of people who don't care once they're gone. Others do. So you want to address their concerns, but these are really the four bridges that you can do to work in this market. And
Mhm.
all of them, hopefully, Michael, they heard that they could partner with other people to be able to do this.
So now, if I mean, it strikes me we do have, I guess, some gaps advisors, right? My traditional training covers me well for stage one. I maybe need to learn a little bit more about intellectual property law. And number two, I don't even know, are there good resources for us advisors? Like, how do I get tuned up on
Well, in October, we're
IPing my
coming out with a
business?
whole series to do VFO virtual family office training. We're in pilot now, delivering it this month, in our internal clients. But there's going to be training, and the reason you like statistics, I like statistics. I mean,
Yeah.
when we look, this is what entrepreneurs are telling us today, type thing. 84.6% want succession.
Yeah.
21% say they're getting it, okay,
Yep.
from their advisor. 79.2 want non-liquid. Big part of the non-liquid, their businesses. They want help with that. 17% say they're getting some help. What
Okay.
they're citing as the biggest driver of whether they're working with somebody is the quality of the advice across this 53.9. I
Okay.
mentioned earlier the 59.2% of entrepreneurs are likely to
Right.
switch or add an advisor in 24 months. 94.6% said there's a coordination
Right.
gap between the professionals they work with today. This is where the openings are just like, okay, this is the most wealthy segment. The wealth is exploding because of
Yeah.
what's going on in today's economy of the most successful, the most asset-based people are doing extremely well. They want to move to qualified advisors. You got to put up your hand and actually be in a position to deliver the experience.
It this reminds me, we had an advisor on our advisor success podcast a little ways ago named Jim Dew. So kitces.com/333 for the episode. It was
Jim's
episode
a
3
good friend and was
333.
a
Do you know
long-term
Jim?
coaching client
Yeah.
type thing.
So, Jim's model, like it's all business owners, I guess by your framing here are probably like a lot of stage two and stage three folks that have $1 million plus
Well, and some
of
stage fours too,
yeah,
because I do know Jim well.
yeah. And just to your point, I mean, it was fascinating when he came on even a few years ago. I don't know if the business models evolved further. He was running a retainer model for business owners that was $10,000 financial planning fees per month
Yeah,
just to do like this level of hands-on work and activity because there's a lot there to do, but he's got planning fees higher than most firms ever get AUM fees, like just doing this and going really deep with it.
yeah. No, I mean, Jim was one of our clients. I think he would give us credit for giving him the framing
Mm.
in the beginning. He's taken it and run. I don't want to take anything away from him. He's a very
Yeah, it's
talented
run
guy.
amazing.
And what he's done is also one of the big multipliers. He's been involved in a community of masterminds, and
Yeah.
that's where almost all his clients come from. And this is where, we as advisors, we can decide what level we want to play at. And if this is important, then, we want to serve business
Yeah.
owners. Well, then, you know, really come armed to provide them the service. They're willing to pay. They're happy to pay for this
Yeah.
service, but you've got to be
What
able to deliver the right experience.
I what strikes me just relative to the conversation though is how, just how not, I don't know, how not fitting our traditional advisor services are for a lot of the stages. I feel like, again, like our traditional stuff does a lot of stage one. There's some ultra high net worth family office types that do a lot of stage four, and we don't necessarily have traditional tools in our toolbox for stages two and three. It's a we've got some learning to do to be effective there.
Well, and one of the reasons why I'm going to go to this is our website for our holding company, CG Elevate Group. And I'm going to just pull up. I thought this was so meaningful. And this is one of the reasons why we need to really think about it. I took 2013 through 2025, and this is our research. And we do study in all areas because of our corporate clients. The mass affluent is growing just a tiny bit, 19% during that period. Millionaires grew 79%. Ultra high net worth, 5 to 25 million. Not, and this is not investable. This is not counting personal residence, but it's net worth less personal residence. Ultra high net worth, 145%. This is where the world's changing. There's been an explosion. Everybody's heard of the K economy, K-shaped economy. Every one of our studies on the high net worth, ultra high net worth, they want to work with an advisor that can use these tools, that can bring these experts together, but they want somebody to act as a
Mm-hmm.
personal CFO type.
So so as we come towards our end here, if I'm trying to figure out how do I figure out where my clients are, or I guess even even where I am if I'm an advisor business owner, that's maybe figuring out where I line up on this.
Well, one of the things that's so great is the ability to build out diagnostic tools with, the different tools that we have
Mhm.
access today. And
Yeah.
we built a dashboard, Dan and I and our teams,
Okay.
that I will make sure you get the address on how to get to it. But,
Okay.
and this is you come in, you're already successful, you take an assessment. I would encourage everybody to do it as an advisor first.
Yeah.
What it comes up with is going to share the vision that came out, the profile it's going to ask you to do. It's going to give you a relative index, how you're doing on the
Okay.
10 multipliers, but it's going to show in detail each of the levels where you are. Also, if you want to dive in, where do you compare to your peers at whatever revenue level you had? Where do you compare to the top in the book? And then
Yeah.
we're updating this constantly. Where do you compare with the uh, other entrepreneurs that are in the database? As advisors, if you have an equity interest in the business, you own the firm, you started, you're a builder, but you're just trying to make it go. That's like the
Yeah.
foundation. Then the grower, you start getting something that works, and you're going to continue to do that. That's the expansion. The operator, the business is really running well. You're just leading
Right.
the charge. And the architect is when you're really creating where there's no dependency, you're able to get exponential growth,
Mhm.
usually blowing by the billions on this and getting the impact as well.
So I guess for folks who are listening and want to go deeper down the proverbial rabbit hole. So again, I know John, you're putting out a new book. I guess is about to come out when we're recording this. Has just come out as of when this goes live. Called The Greater Game, with you and Dan Sullivan. So I appreciate it's like we'll have a link out to the in the show notes, the greatergamedashboard.com/kitsis. And again, it just strikes me it's I don't know it's more different than I think a lot of advisors realize of what these clients are really looking for to really wrap their whole financial picture together beyond the assets that get invested from the income that happens to kick off from the business, just not really the
It
center of their
really
lives.
is.
Well, very cool. Very cool. Thank you again, John, for joining us and spending the time.